Good afternoon. My name is Don Bowman. My company is Agilicus. And today we're going to talk about why the VPN isn't a really good solution for multi-site manufacturing. We saw quite a few issues, but the notable one is probably Jaguar Land Rover, where the dealer network, all of their suppliers, the entire chain got brought down. But we've seen this over time is in the Colonial Pipeline hack where you had the primary operator, the pipeline with trusted partners. When you join their networks together, the risk explodes. And that doesn't mean to say you can't share information or share data. But today we're going to talk a little bit about an alternative based around zero trust. It's actually simpler for the users and systems to use, but it helps put some firewalls in the system so that you don't have the issue that one bad USB key in one network takes out everybody. So the problem statement, manufacturing. Manufacturing usually has multiple locations. Sometimes they're subsidiaries. Sometimes they're even in different jurisdictions. You may also have just different divisions as part of the same group. You can also have joint ventures, which is you and another company jointly own half of what becomes a third company. And you also may have contract manufacturers that are, taking inventory out of your system and putting it back in. They might be co-located with your site. They might otherwise. But as a consequence, you've got a lot of different companies interrelated in building the thing. And that means that the risk goes up because you've got different management, different policies, different strategies, etc. And the bigger something is, the bigger the chance that one thing gets in. Also, the bigger the downside when the whole thing goes down. And common business systems here, you might have ERP, you might have manufacturing execution systems, you might have inventory, and you might have a need, for example, if you have a complex environment, you might have the management team that sits above it wants to see dashboards of everybody all at once. You might have the situation where you've got a contractor that supports your SAP and you want them to be able to load new parts into it, but you don't want them to be able to interact with the manufacturing floor, the HMI, et cetera. And everybody wants high efficiency and low risk. High efficiency, just-in-time manufacturing, minimum inventory means you don't have any buffer. If something goes wrong, you don't have buffer to deal with it. That hiccup becomes everywhere, and it takes a long time to get the entire system going again afterwards. Sometimes you have systems on another site that you need to use, like you need to print something on the printer, and that's located in the other building, and that handles the bill of lading or what have you, some Zebra printer with some magic labels or something. But anyway, the problem is the user, the system, the sites, etc. They're all different. And we're going to talk about how to make unified authentication so everybody can sign in with their single sign-on, no matter which company they work for, into the right system with exactly the right permissions that they have, no more, no less. Manufacturing has all kinds of risks. So there's obviously the risks associated with the manufacturing process itself, safety, and et cetera. But when it comes to IT and operational technology and cyber risk, there's some new rules that came online after the Clorox problem in 2023. The SEC entered some new reports that you have to do, Section 105, 106. And in a nutshell, you have to disclose your process for cybersecurity, and you also have to disclose any events. They take the position that cybersecurity outages are material to somebody's understanding of what they're investing in. And as a consequence, A, you want to have the right thing to put there, and B, you want to be able to explain it simply. And you can't just say, look, we join everybody and their dog together into one big network, and we hope ransomware doesn't come along. You can't say that. Ransomware, it's obviously the one that's on most people's minds. It's what most people consider the most damaging. It may not be the most damaging. I suppose that somebody could get in and change a manufacturing line and cause a large amount of scrap, or maybe they would make the robots dangerous and hurt somebody, remove some limit switches or something like that. But people are mostly focused around the ransomware. They think about, an outage, a shutdown. If that supplier goes down, then I'm going to stall. I'll have to shut down. Or they think, okay, well, this system goes down and now I don't know who I'm paying. I can't pay my staff, et cetera. They think about those outages. That ransomware gets in a lot of different ways. Email is obviously still a big one. Somebody sends you an email that's got a little link in it and you click on it and bingo bango, bad things happen. But it could be something else. It could be, a file that gets opened. It could be a port scan, something that's open. The bigger that network is, the more endpoints there are in, the more types of users with the more types of applications, those risks multiply upwards. And that's why a VPN, which just is layer three network to layer three network, now one bigger layer three network, it really doesn't help you putting in firewall breaks between that. And the other thing is, in a manufacturing environment, a lot of people tend to think about the front of the house stuff. We run email and Word and so on, but the back of the house stuff is where the real dollars are. And you've got a bunch of things that don't get updated. There's a industrial control system of some sort. There's a PLC running the line. There's an HMI that is integrated to it, and the HMI is running VNC and Windows CE 6.5, and they've got this Modbus protocol and doesn't have any concept of encryption or passwords in it at all. And it all feeds up into this manufacturing engineering system, but also may feed into things like SolarWinds, which are monitoring it, maybe Veeam, which is backing it up. Then that integrates in with the IT environment. And as a consequence, something can either come in the bottom and go up or come in the top and go down, but you could take out your ability to produce your product. None of these systems allow downtime. When you get back into that operational technology, you're not doing Patch Tuesday from Microsoft where you're saying, okay, well, every Tuesday we're going to reboot everything and see if it comes back up good. You're like, no, it's a 24/7 just-in-time manufacturing environment. This is not how this functions. So we're just not going to patch. And it's also not necessarily great, but you have to put in what are called mitigating measures to deal with that sort of risk. Authentication is another complex one. You might have unionized or hourly staff at the back, and they don't really have an account in your system. You might have contractors who are coming in temporarily on your site. They need to use something. You might have that third party on their site. You might have somebody who's working from home and coming in, and you might have an integrator that's upgrading your HMI or modifying some startup times in your PLC. What we're here to talk about today with Agilicus is how to make that problem go away. You can get rid of the VPN, so all the sites aren't interconnected, but you can still have the same outcome that you would otherwise. You'd be able to have the user gets their task done, the system gets its data to the cloud, and there's no VPN for it to just flow through unfettered. But in Zero Trust, each of those users signs in with their native natural credentials. So that's what we're going to discuss today. We're going to talk about what are the drivers for this. There's a bit of a skill set gap that's going on, and it's causing people not to be able to go to site to do things. The systems are becoming SaaSified, SaaSification of all systems. We're going to talk about the different perspectives from you as the person that owns the factory, the partner, which is the company that supports you, the other partner, which is the company that puts inventory in and out of it. And we're going to talk about a non-zero sum answer where everybody wins. So managed remote operations, that's how I started thinking about this is, when you're VPNing between sites, it might be just day-to-day operations, but it might be also somebody's operating something for you. It might be your own team. You've got a central SCADA team and they're managing all the alarms. It could be an integrator, or it could be even we're starting to see manufacturers say, if you want to buy my system, well, I do predictive maintenance. It has to be able to connect to me so I know when it needs service. Those systems are getting more and more complex. The number of PLCs, the amount of logic in each, the number of sensors is going up and up and up and up and up. And the systems are getting more interconnected. You're starting to see licensed servers on the internet and off-net database and historians. At the same time, efficiency is such a big driver, it's driving this to become more real time. So instead of sensors putting something into here for real time, but really putting it into the historian where you looked at the end of the quarter, now you're talking about inventory, it's minute by minute, order by order. This managed remote operations, what's happening is the skill sets are getting more rare. The people there's no one person that can do every task, which means you almost certainly need to have remote support because there's 10 different people with 10 different skills. They can't all be on all of your 10 different sites. That would be 100 people. The second strategy that's happening here is I call it SaaSification. So things that used to be a capital purchase. We bought a manufacturing line. We spent $100,000. It's good for 20 years. We amortize it over time. Has become, we bought something and the software wasn't quite done, and we started using it, and eventually they finished it after we'd bought it. And by the way, it's now a subscription. So everything you're buying is moving to be a subscription. In my lifetime, we went from not having CDs to me going to a store and buying CDs to not having CDs anymore. Now it's music as a service. But also, I grew up on a farm. My tractor was very simple. You could start with screwdrivers and no electronics on it. Today, John Deere, It's 5G interconnected. You're not allowed to repair it. They've gone to war with the farmer, but they've made tractor as a service. And they're doing that for economics. It's a little bit more complicated inside it now. So they're starting to put more engineering work in and it's needing more after support. But B, they want to get a revenue stream. And they're like, well, wait a minute. People are still running tractors that look like that were reduced in the 40s and 50s. Let's get rid of that. Let's do planned obsolescence. So you need the new tractor with Bluetooth or whatever. And you're starting to see this in all kinds of operations, historian as a service, big data as a service, et cetera. Big data is the other driver. VPNing between sites, you often end up with site A and site B interconnect, and site C runs the MES, and there's a database there. But what's happening is everybody's moving that to the cloud. And the reason is the amount of data has gone up. And storage, it's expensive to run. It's not infinitely expensive. It's not impossible. But we're not talking about a couple of drives and a Synology here. You're starting to talk about big fiber channel systems, et cetera. But also you're starting to want to have reporting platforms that are on top of it, Snowflake and things of that nature. And it's no longer just an Excel spreadsheet on your own side. So you need it all there anyway. And that data is now moving from, monthly compliance reports, the WEMIS from Friends, into millisecond value drivers. It's almost part of the real-time system. Which of my plants should I send this order to? Oh, this one, there's an outage here. With all the tariff disruption in the world, the amount of people spent time on purchasing, trying to figure out how to ways to, reroute supply chains is enormous. And it's driven by this data. And if the sites are all VPN together, it might sound very convenient, but again, there's going to be a problem, and it means they're all going to go down. But predictive maintenance, inventory anomaly detection, et cetera. So you think about all the different roles. You got factory A, factory B, factory C. They're all owned by the same company. You got factory D, which is owned as a wholly owned subsidiary. So it's a separate corporation. They in turn have separate Microsoft Active Directory or Google Workspace identity providers. Factory D has a partner that does part of the manufacturing for them. So they get partially finished goods in, and the inventory is checked out to them. They do the work and they bring it back in again. That company is entirely separate. The main factories also handle, maybe there's a service network, so there's a dealer network that's out there. And those are independent franchises, but they connect back for documents and document management systems and so on. And these are all the different roles that come in. So you've got a system integrator, you've got an engineering procurement company, you've got the person that owns the factory, you've got managed remote operations, et cetera. So I break these down this way. So I own the infrastructure, the risk is mine. This is key. There's a difference of opinion on some of these things that should be shared. So I own the risk. So I have a very dim view of, let's just do this. It's easy. We'll get it done. Nothing bad will ever happen. When I manage multiple customers, I have the opposite view. Look, I don't own the risk there, but I want it to be really easy to get in and do my work at all those customers. This is actually a friction point. I design, et cetera. So each of these roles, they have a different thing that they need out of your system. They need to be able to do a subset. They need to be able to do efficiently. They need to be able to do it with their single sign-on and multi-factor to meet your insurance. So this challenge, they're not symmetric across the roles. So, the reason people like VPNs is everything is all just one and it's flat. When you're the operator, suddenly you start to think about, why would I import their network risk into mine? And I own the risk. So the cybersecurity is very important to me. And I manage is just like, wow, I want everything to be all flat so I can get there. It's expensive if every customer is different. My team just wants full connectivity. And those are unaligned and they fight. And what ends up happening is identity and connectivity. So how I sign in, I'm just going to create a separate account for you. Oh, but I manage 30 different customers. I'm going to have to manage 30 different accounts. I guess so. But there's 30 people on my team. Well, I'm just going to create one account. You can share it as you need to. Well, that means that there's a whole lot of room for badness to occur. Maybe somebody leaves my team in bad terms, and now they've got all the passwords to all these sites. None of my customers change it. Maybe that's identity. Connectivity is how I get there. And policy, do you have to have multi-factor? Do you have to be physically on site? Do you have to be in the country, et cetera? They become a battleground rather than a common ground. And as a consequence, you end up with just the worst outcome. It's the most complicated to use, and it's also the least secure because everybody's compromised, went in the wrong direction. And you start to get into these acrimonious discussions about, you're not putting a backdoor into my network with that site or modem, and you're not being very pragmatic. So, identity. The key thing to the Agilicus NEX system is unified authentication. We make it really easy. Anybody can sign in with their native natural credentials, no matter who they work for. So it could be Joe at his company, Jane at her company. It's like signing with their email. There's no new usernames, no new passwords. That means you can assign permission and say, line 3, PLC2, robot 4, safety pin in. Okay, Joe at his company is able to access that thing. And they don't have to worry about, well, this is a shared account. I wonder, that company, I wonder if they've lost it. You don't have to worry about that because it's Joe logging in. And Joe likes it better because he doesn't have to remember a new password. It's like signing into his email, which he knows how to do. People work for companies. Companies attest identity via authentication. It's common to force a partner to a new identity. That's that shared password thing. Single sign-on becomes a shared ID in that case, and bad things happen. If you have local accounts in the system, this is another one. We're an identity-aware proxy. We get rid of that. So you can keep the local account in the system and nobody can know it, and they can log in because there's a credential exchange. They sign in with single sign-on. Joe at his company, VNC opens, it does password stuffing. He doesn't know about that. And that way you can rotate the password on the system without telling all the contractors. Otherwise, you see problems like, in the water space, we saw the Oldsmar Water TeamViewer problem where there was an outage and there was a security violation. Somebody started to add some chemicals to this water because somebody put TeamViewer in there and they all shared the password to it. So there's a really simple need here. We run manufacturing. We have multiple sites. We run 24/7. Those sites are sometimes the same company and they're sometimes different companies. They're sometimes related companies and they're sometimes unrelated companies. Follow the sun. We can't have this go down. But what we need is for any user, any system, any device, any network, the access I need, no more, no less, high simplicity, high security. Make that happen and everybody's good. This little diagram on the right gives you an idea. Vendor support should be able to do what they need. Somebody who has access to 2, somebody has access to nothing, somebody has read-only access to something. This is generically, if you can achieve this, you're happy. The industry calls this zero trust. And you've probably seen this term a lot because it's been around for a while. There's a whole bunch of NIST standards on the topic, but in a nutshell, zero trust is fairly simple to understand. So the idea is there's 3 swim lanes: who, what, and how. Who are you? I need to know who you are down to an individual person, or in the case of system, a system. So there's no shared account. There's no, well, you're on the network. I know it's Jane at her company. That's the first ingredient I need. So we think about that as single sign-on, but it's really like signing into your email. The second is authorization, or what. What are you allowed to do? So it isn't, oh, I have credentials, therefore I can do anything. This would make no sense. You gave me a visitor badge at the front desk, therefore I'm the CEO. That doesn't make any sense. So on the authorization or what side, I have read-only access to that, nothing on that. Read write to this one. This system can push data to this database, but it can't pull it back. It can't do a backup, etc. On a share, I can read this directory, but not that directory. You need fine-grained authorization. So it isn't, this is the main thing the VPN doesn't get right, is the VPN gives you an IP address on the network and you could do anything as if you were on that network. It's not what you want. And then the last thing is how. How do I get to that thing or access? The VPN, it's a solution to this. It creates a tunnel over usually the public internet, and you get an IP address on the far end, and you can ping everything in sight. In our system, it's an identity-aware proxy. There's no software on your client. The end user doesn't have to install anything. Just open a browser, and it does its job. They like it means they can use a tablet, they can use a phone, they can use whatever they like. But also, if they're supporting multiple customers, they don't have to, think about the problem of, I support 30 customers. I'm going to install 30 different VPNs. It doesn't work. So make it seamless. So who are you? What are you allowed to do? How do I get you to that thing? If you solve that on a per resource person pair, so it isn't the user to the site or all of the site to the site. If it's this person, this resource, this set, you have zero trust. And that's what you're going to configure. You create rules that say Dawn has read-only access to HMI2. And that creates this thing, I call it shared custody, shared destiny. So there's a little Venn diagram on the right. You've got partner 1 and customer. You've got partner 2, and they overlap on authentication. I am willing to trust that you as my partner do a proper job of hiring and firing your staff and putting them in your authentication system, and that you attest to their identity in the same way you do for your own business for email. I'm willing to accept that. So therefore, I don't need to create new accounts. All I need is to be able to use that account to attest for the access to something specific that I own, and I control that rule. So you control who the person is, and I control what they're allowed to do. Trust, verify, everybody's happy. And this allows you this sort of happy picture on the right where a vendor can get access to your historian to do some maintenance on it, but not get it onto the factory floor, even if someone's got a gun to their head or they accidentally click on some malware in their email. And it's a win-win. Earlier, I talked about non-zero sum. Think about poker. Poker is zero sum. For me to win, you have to lose. There's only so many chips on the table. But there's ecosystems out there that are non-zero sum. You think about making a house. The carpenter makes some money, the plumber makes some money, the electrician makes some money. They're happy, but the house sells for more than the sum of their work. Everybody wins. That's what trade is all about. So in this environment, the end user says, this zero trust system is simpler for me. I sign in just like my email. It's natural. I don't have to worry about remembering a password or writing it down. Worry that you've implemented multi-factor using the YubiKey, but we normally use this code generator. I got to go find the YubiKey. You don't have to worry about any of those things. There's no user provisioning and deprovisioning. You don't have to worry that your partner's staff has churned. You don't need to know about that because they just disappear from the system automatically. There's a request acknowledge flow. You can get a notification. Hey, person A would like access to system B. Yes. Much simpler than just provisioning it and hoping that nothing ever changes. There's no VPN. It's browser only, any device, multi-factor, even an air gap. It's actually more secure, but it's actually simpler for the end user. Everybody wins. So why does this reduce risk? Well, the first is shared accounts. The shared account risk is tremendous. The number of people that you should share your password with is the same as that you would share your toothbrush with, which is no one. Shared accounts are gone. We don't need it because we got single sign-on from their identity provider. So their HR churn is not my risk. So with respect to VPNing the sites together, I don't have to worry about anybody can get into my network because they got the VPN credentials. Overbroad access is gone. The blast radius is now the single resource I have access to, not the entire site, which is what the VPN does. I don't have the web of VPN so that one of my sites trips and the others all fall. I have an audit trail. I know exactly who did what when. It's a strong incentive not to do something wrong. I'm not saying people don't make mistakes, but when there's a full audit trail, you don't have to worry about some employee maybe there's an industrial action and they think they won't get caught. You can enforce multi-factor. You can turn multi-factor on and not have to worry about your partner saying, oh no, we have shared accounts. We got 30 people to support you. I can't have one YubiKey and what am I going to do? Put on a board in front of the room and they all walk up and grab it when they need it. It doesn't work. They work from home. You don't have to be sympathetic to this argument. Look, each one of your staff logs it as themselves. They have multi-factor. We'll either do it in our system or you can do it in yours. Just show me what you want. Removing the VPN means that only the resource the user has access to is available. If you got 5 production lines and they're upgrading number 1, you don't have to worry that they accidentally touch number 2 and cause some damage or somebody to get hurt because that's the only one they have access to. You don't have to worry about, a mistake. You don't have to worry about a leak. It's just the blast radius is so much smaller. And also, you don't have to worry about shared software. There's nothing for you to install on your partners' machines, whether those partners are subsidiaries or those partners are joint ventures or those partners are just other sites or those partners are integrators or what have you. You don't have to worry about shared software and shared licensing because there's nothing for them to install. They got a browser. The implementation needs, you're probably thinking, oh my God, this is really complicated. There's going to be a Gantt chart and there's going to be project managers in here drinking my coffee for months. Most of our customers get this going in hours. It usually takes less than an hour to get the first thing going and the first users on it. There's really not a lot of configuration. There's no change in your network. It's an identity-aware proxy. You don't have to change your IPs. You don't have to go and reimagine and reconfigure. The end applications don't know anything. The proxy takes care of it all for you. It's really, really simple. And it fixes the challenges. So as an operator, if you own the plant, you own the risk. Security is important. Your staff needs it, etc. It fixes all that. You don't have to worry about the vendor dictating, this is the only way we work with customers. You say, no, I've got a solution to this. As the manager, there's the person that's on the other side of it. They don't have to worry about every customer has a different VPN or system or not being able to install on their laptop. Don't have to worry about multi-factor breaking them. It's just easy and convenient for them. And for Agillicus, we win because you become my customer and we make some money. But the value we provide for our customers is enhanced security. You don't have to worry about ransomware walking through everything because there's no shared network. There's no SMB. There's no shares. You don't have to worry about that one partner's weak security become your issue. It's just there's a blast radius that cordons them off. They can only get to the resource at hand with the protocol at hand. for authenticated users, and the malware is not authenticated, so it doesn't come in. It increases your operational efficiency. Somebody needs to support you at 2 a.m. on Christmas Day, no problem. It's a bit of a shame, but pull out your laptop and click, you're logged in, you can do your thing. You don't have to worry about setting something up or whatever. It's a very seamless end user experience. To be honest, most of the people that are supporting you are relatively industrial in nature, and they're not IT specialists, and they just want to get their task done. They don't want to learn how to install software. They just want to get on that HMI and press the reboot button. Anyway, with that, if there's any questions, please feel free to email us, info@agillicus.com. My team's going to reach out to you after this webinar, and I'd love for you to take their call. And they're going to see if there's a way we can work together. And thank you very much. And you have a great day. Again, my name is Don Bowman. My company is Agillicus. We make secure remote access, zero trust for industrial control systems.